Anyway, we got to Blood and Guts, the Pinnacle and the Dinner Circle, the big showdown between these two teams that have never faced each other before, and one group didn't exist 5 weeks ago. And we now have the ultimate showdown. And I realized this is why when you can't predict AEW. Has it ever happened that the heel team won War Games? I'm thinking.
They won in 91.
Okay, I wasn't around then.
Horseman versus Sting, Steiners, and Pillman.
That's right. They beat poor Pillman when Sid powerbombed him on his head. And remember Sid took Brian up for the powerbomb, but he was so stupid he didn't realize there was a roof on the cage, and Brian's feet hit and stopped his upward trajectory, and Sid just dropped him right on his head.
Hence the roof of this Blood and Guts cage was far away from where Sid Vicious could powerbomb someone.
Yeah, well, and that was an improvement, because that's the same thing that happened to JJ in the very first War Games in 87 in Atlanta. The finish was going to be the Road Warriors giving the Doomsday Device to JJ off the top, but the cage roof was so low that Hawk came off at a different trajectory to try to get the clothesline in, and Animal couldn't get him turned right, and JJ went down sideways on his shoulder, separated the shoulder bad, had to get flown back to Charlotte, had immediate surgery on it. So anyway, at least they raised the roof. They raised the roof, just not with the people on this one.
I will say, I thought the look was great. I thought the cage looked really good. I'm glad they had a roof on it.
Yeah.
I like the height of it. I thought in terms of the appearance, it looked really good. They got it right.
They got a bunch right here. They got a few segments right until it all went south. The cage looked great, as you said. They explained the rules. They were doing the legitimate rules. There's no way the match can end until everybody's in, and then it's submission or surrender, no pinfalls. Dax and Sammy Guevara starting was perfect. Because Dax is Arn Anderson, and that was Arn's spot to start, the best workers start. And this was a prime example of that. And they opened up at 100 miles an hour with wrestling spots and then fighting, but they kept the pace up, and Dax was bumping like crazy. And then Sammy runs Dax into the cage for his color. And thank God they had blood in a cage match. As I've mentioned, it's the low-fat Twinkie rule. If you can't eat the fat, don't eat the Twinkie. If you can't have blood, don't have a cage match. I see people say, oh, they shouldn't have blood in this day and age. What the fuck? This is not a bank-addicted drug robber in some fucking outlaw garbage show in New Jersey in somebody's backyard slicing up some other fucking moron. These guys, they can easily fucking test, and these guys, they can easily, they've got medical reports on these guys. And I don't think either one of these guys are out there doing garbage matches in fucking, combat zone wrestling or some shit like that. So, no, I'd a whole lot rather get juice than almost anything these guys do. Because everything else they do is so fucking dangerous these days, you could actually hurt yourself. With a fucking blade, you're in charge of your own destiny, and all it is fucking blood. Anyway, Dax got the color. Good first 5 minutes. And then Spears was next in. He brought a chair in. I knew they were going to, I thought if they keep one chair, okay. Then there was another chair in there, and finally they couldn't control themselves, but it wasn't really bad for a while. But they bring a chair in, so now they've got a hat on a hat, the weapons in a cage. Sammy fought against both of them, but they took over. They whacked him with a good chair shot. He took 3 hours to get his color, and he didn't get much. It was a pap smear, but still, he tried. None of these guys are experienced with getting color because nobody ever does it anymore. Ortiz came in and made a big comeback, and they were following the War Games format very well. When the odds are even, the baby faces are up. When the heel has the advantage, the baby face is down. When the fucking next baby face comes in, all the heels feed him, they make a big comeback. That way you keep it going. Ortiz brought another chair in, but they had a big brawl. They tried to get a little fancy. I think Ortiz was going to shoot Dax off, and Sammy was going to do a springboard, but Sammy fell off the top on the springboards. Dax just put the brakes on. But this is the one thing that I'm glad nobody got hurt seriously. But when the ring starts getting filled up like that, or the rings, or everybody's into one ring, and you've got the cage already, and you got weapons, and you're trying to do springboards into double teams, it's busy in there, and slow down and keep it a little bit more basic, and shit, you won't end up falling on your ass in front of somebody, in front of God and everybody on national TV. When Cash got in, he went completely fucking nuts, and he did a big comeback. And Sammy was a Super Bowl through this whole thing. He took a great bump over the top onto the cage, or into the cage, but he almost broke Ortiz's leg when he landed on the apron because Ortiz was laying there. Like I said, the guys were working their asses off. It was reckless, but it was a good match. It wasn't like I was saying, oh, this is fucking stupid. I was concerned for their safety because they're green. Santana came in, big fucking comeback. They went to a break, and when they came back from the break, Wardlow was in. Sammy was still trying to cripple himself with all these bumps he was taking. And then Hager came in, and, he started fucking chucking people around, and they kept it moving until finally there's Hager and Wardlow face to face, and the people are up, and everybody else is down, and there's the big guys. Do you see why, Brian, now these two guys, the people want to see them in their minds fight more than they actually want to see it when the fight happens?
Yeah.
And I'm giving the blame on a lot of this to Hager, because Wardlow's newer and he's greener. But Hager's awkward with a lot of people. But this was an awkward exchange where nobody just knows how to fucking draw back and throw punches. They're trying forearms. Then they're struggling against the cage. There was no bumps. And then other people got involved. But it wasn't the clash of the Titans.
Hey, what did you think of the outfits? The Inner Circle all came out with these prison uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
I dug the fact that Santana and Ortiz had the makeup on. I thought they looked pretty cool, but I don't know if it was just Jericho or the idea in general. I wasn't crazy about the prison uniforms.
Well, I didn't mind it. They all looked kind of like Nails. Really looked when he got sent to jail. But also, somebody tweeted me a picture that Jericho on the back had Stony Mountain Penitentiary. Is he trying to give you a knock? I said, well, fuck. I said, if he was going to do that, the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary isn't that far from Knoxville. He could have been real instead of fake. But then somebody actually Googled this, and there is a Stony Mountain Penitentiary in Winnipeg or in Manitoba somewhere. And I didn't know they had mountains in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I didn't know they had prisons in Canada. Thought everybody was too polite for that. But apparently that was real. I could take it or leave it. I don't know. We were almost, I'm thinking they've almost got this, but God, there's a disturbing amount of time left in the show at this point, because I said, here's one of the most important things about the War Games. Once everybody gets in, your clock is ticking. You can wear out your welcome easily if you don't keep it moving and get to the point once all 10 guys are in. I wish they'd have called to ask me that before they had this match, because they found out the hard way. MJF got in and proceeded to go get heat on everybody with all the other heels helping him, and taunted Jericho, who wasn't in yet. And Cash, somehow, how did Cash get busted open? That was during a break or something. He was covered in blood.
I don't know, and I've always said it, Dax, one of the best workers in the whole business. Cash may be the most underrated guy in the whole business. Everything he does looks good. There's an intensity. He knows how to get color. I've become a bigger and bigger fan of Cash in the last year or so.
Exactly. There was so much of it. I'm not sure whether that was one of the guys that might have been unintentional. But I didn't see how it happened. But anyway, all this built up, all we need is one more guy in, and then we're gold, right? Here comes Chris Jericho. And I swear to God, at that point, I knew we were in trouble. When's the last time you saw the last babyface come in the War Games and both teams separate, everything comes to a halt, and they all stand in separate rings? I can answer that.
Yeah, I don't remember that spot ever.
That never happened. And everything came to a halt, and then they do a charge and a schmoz, but fuck. They're in two different rings. When they charged and met each other in the middle, they either had to lean over the ropes or climb through to get, and it looked like a fucking clusterfuck. It wasn't a big meeting of boom, boom, boom. It was, we got to get through all these ropes. And then Jericho pulls out a baseball bat that he brought in his jumpsuit. And he hit several people with it and then lost it and dropped it. And now it's gotten preposterous. If you're in that situation, in a cage with 5 guys on the other side that want to kill you, and you've got a baseball bat in your hands, what's the chances that this match is going to go on too much longer? Fuck. And then they went to a break. And when they came back from the break, they had pulled up the canvas and the padding on one of the rings, and they're giving pile drivers on the wood. There's a baseball bat still floating around. There's chairs in the ring. Jericho is using the baseball bat to choke people.
It seemed to me that Jericho, not even talking about the bump at the end, that Jericho was, I don't want to say putting in the least effort, but he didn't bring anywhere near the intensity everyone else brought to this match.
He looked blown up, except he hadn't been in there long enough to be blown up. At one point, he was just walking around asking Aubrey Edwards shit on the floor. He didn't do any of his stuff, but I don't know, maybe he was hurt, maybe he's got COVID. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but the point is, what kind of idiot in a fucking gang war uses a baseball bat to choke somebody? That's why you don't need the bat, because it's preposterous. So Guevara did the Shane O'Mac coast-to-coast drop kick on the chair on Cash or Dax, one or the other. But the point it had completely, at the point where they could have had him and needed to be going home, now that it's degenerated into an indie garbage weapons match. And as soon as Jericho got in, that's when the fucking momentum changed. They stopped everything. Then they started it up again. Then all the weapons and taking the ring apart. There's so many chairs and bats and batons and loose ropes and torn up padding, and it's going on forever. They've lost the fucking plot. And then they go to another break. And I said, we're still 12 minutes left in the show when they're overdue to go to this finish. And there's a reason that the War Games always ended not long after all 10 guys get in. And so after the break, I actually had to go back and watch the picture-in-picture to understand during the break, when nobody's watching, I've got an 82-inch fucking television. I don't watch that picture-in-picture because it's too small. Tully knocked the referee out on the floor, got the key, and unlocked the door. And MJF got out. And of course, what's the thing you do when you get out of a cage? You climb to the top of it out of sheer fear. And Jericho is following him all during the break. So when we come back from the break, MJF is on top of the fucking cage. Jericho is getting there. They put another hat on a hat. And the entire match down below ceases to exist or even be shot on camera while Jericho gets the walls of Jericho on MJF. And MJF is milking the tap, right? But then Jericho on camera, he couldn't even use his right hand that was behind him and off camera. He had to use the one facing the hard camera. And by the way, thanks to AEW Botches on Twitter, at AEW Botches, for playing the slow-mo of this in one of their GIFs so that we could see it well, but I caught it anyway. Jericho's got the fucking crab on MJF, and he reaches down and gives him the Iggy on his thigh for MJF to ball shot him. And MJF ball shots him. And then MJF gets the armbar, the Fujiwara armbar, the salt to the earth, and Jericho pulls his blade off his wrist and keeps it. He didn't need it for another 3 minutes. MJF is working on the arm.
I noticed that too.
So now the camera's on MJF and Jericho forever. The rest of the match has ceased to exist. They're up there, and Jericho is teasing tapping by waving the hand that he's holding the blade in his thumb and forefinger. And then MJF puts his fucking ring on and punches Jericho, and Jericho goes down and gets his color, and everything stops again. And then Tony Schiavone gets to call MJF a piece of shit. He only said it once. He said crap later on. So apparently they have a quota on the number of times that their formerly professional announce crew, now a bunch of juvenile delinquents, can say shit on TV. So everything came to a halt. MJF teases pushing Jericho off the edge of the cage unless they surrender. Jericho stands there staggering, but still on his feet, in the perfect position to be pushed off, while the teammates ponder this conundrum that they've got in front of them. If somebody was going to threaten, yelling, saying, I'm going to push him off this thing, if you were him, the guy about to get pushed off, wouldn't you just drop down on your belly and grab a hold of that thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to push him. No, don't. I'm going to push him. No, don't. I'm going to push him. No, don't. Finally, Sammy says, fuck it, we give up. And then the camera gets a close-up of Jericho talking to MJF saying, turn around and milk it. And basically turned around and milked it. And then he gave Jericho a gentle push. And Jericho did the Nesty Plunge trust fall off the top of the cage onto what the announcers have already said is a concrete stage that is far, far underneath him. And Jericho hits that concrete stage and it goes poof, poof. It went poof. It was an airbag under fake pieces of metal made out of cardboard that were not only obvious, but flapping in the breeze. And it just went poof. And they didn't even pick up on the fact that everybody went, when he was coming down, everybody was going, oh. They replayed it from different angles and made it even more obvious. The cardboard metal plates flapping in the breeze that had no weight to them. The airbag that you could see underneath him. That Jericho with one eye open talking to people that were checking on his safety. Then they replayed it another time. Then they came back to more Chris Jericho with one eye open talking to people concerned with his. Nobody was concerned about his safety because everybody could see he just landed on a fucking airbag. And I swear to fucking God, if I'm lying, I'm flying. My feet have not left the ground. There were people on Twitter excusing that by saying, well, what did you expect him to take a bump on the concrete? No, we don't expect him to take a bump at all unless they can make it look right. When's the last time fucking Stallone or Schwarzenegger or The Rock knocked a goddamn terrorist off the building or threw somebody off the fucking roof and they landed on an airbag on screen? If they're making movies here, then there's no excuse for it. If they're doing professional wrestling, there's no excuse for it. Because either in whatever art form they believe that they're plying their trade, it was bad either way. You don't see the fucking villain in the climactic scene of an action-adventure movie land on the fucking airbag. And you shouldn't see it in wrestling. So if you can't do a bump right or make a bump look good, don't do the fucking bump. But and to the credit of some of the AEW fans, many people were obviously, like with the exploding ring, bullshit over this, as Vince McMahon would say. They're bullshit. But a lot of them are going, well, he couldn't land on the stage. Then don't fucking take off if you can't make the landing, Einstein. Was this one of the more embarrassing things you've seen?
I didn't go as crazy as other people have because I didn't expect much. Once they got up there and it became apparent they were going to throw him off, I figured what it was going to be. Now, I will say I've seen a lot of people go off Titantrons and stages and cages and everything else. This one did look more phony than almost all of them. It didn't help that when the camera showing Jericho laying there on top of the fake metal, pretending he's dead, you could see him talking to the referees around him and opening one eye and like trying to see what's going on. I mean, that didn't need to be on camera.
They had the worst camera shots all night of anybody, people blading, people holding blades, people talking to each other, people with one eye open, gripping their pillow tight in their crash pad. Everybody that saw that's not an AEW lunatic mark that just believes they can do no wrong, laughed. And that is not I don't think that's the goddamn reaction that they should have been going for when there was 9 other guys in there cutting their heads, bashing each other's brains out, hitting each other with chairs and objects, bumping off that fucking metal cage that's real metal, working their ass off, right, wrong, or indifferent, to get to a point where the big star comes in and takes his big bump that I'm sure was his big idea, and it's fucking phony and embarrassing, and people are laughing. He just shit all over those guys and everything they did. And that's ridiculous. He even took the fall like it was a goddamn a trust fall. Okay, I'm going to freeze just like this. He's landing on a fucking airbag to begin with, and he's still fucking I'm just going to fall straight back and keep my arms in. You can see Vince McMahon at 75 years old doing that as a run through and popping up and smiling. I don't understand how the fuck they think that this is going to go anywhere with this thing. If every time they build a big match or a big moment or a big whatever, it's a popcorn fart. Exploding ring poof, airbag poof. This is not the first airbag they've used, but this really looked bad. Who was it? Moxley and Twinkle Toes had some kind of airbag deal they did a while back, and that looked equally stupid. But every time they advertise something major, the last thought that most people have of it is, what the fuck was that? Are they serious? So I don't see why who could not be offended. I know you saw it coming, so you just rolled your eyes, but who could not be offended by that as the finish of a major blood and guts match and a guy falls onto a crash pad? The end.
I think plenty of people saw it and weren't offended. They may have been laughing at it, but that's different than being offended by it.
Okay, well, I'm offended. They laugh, I'm offended, much in the same way as if I was let's say Steven Spielberg, and I saw some amateur fucking director do a rotten movie where you see the fucking guy fall on the fucking crash pad in the movie. I would be offended as a director. Moviegoers may just laugh and say, well, that was funny, but I would be offended as a professional director.
You know, I liked the match for the most part. I didn't like the weapons, the chair. The bat was especially problematic to me. It was unnecessary. I liked it. And then when Jericho came in, like you said, noticeable change in pace. Yep. I felt like every time they showed him on camera, he was just walking around not doing anything. But then when they got to the top of the cage, I really didn't like that, because why do you need that? You're in War Games. You don't have to go on top of the cage. It's not unique. We've seen plenty of people climb to the top of a big cage and take a fall. It's happened way too often in wrestling.
If Chris wanted to be a man, why did he take that fucking hip toss off like Cactus did and just go through the fucking desk?
But I hated the actual finish beyond the actual crash landing. I hated the idea that MJF's threatening to throw Chris and Sammy's begging him for 30 seconds. And then that's it. The referee calls it. I hated the finish itself beyond the noticeably fake landing.
Well, and see, there's the problem they booked themselves into. How do the heels win the ultimate blow-off match and there are no rules? They can't cheat because there's no rules. So you have to get creative, which everybody involved in this fucking venture has they don't have a hard time being creative. They just have a hard time with good shit. They're creative out their ass constantly. And it smells like it came out of their ass too. But now then the problem becomes, okay, at first we were saying, well, how the fuck they're going to beat the heels in their first match together because the heels never win war games. It's the ultimate blow-off match. Okay, they solved that problem. They swerved us there. The heels won the war games. Now how are the baby faces going to get even? What's a more ultimate blow-off match than the war games? How's the now they've got to figure out, well, what the fuck do we do? Is it napalm or a live hand grenade and we pull the pin and, stick it in each other's fucking tights? I don't fucking know. But this is the goddamnedest program I've ever seen. We suddenly have a network TV War Games main event between the former top heel team and a new top heel team that wasn't a group 5 weeks ago, and the first match that they ever have all in together with each other is a War Games match, and the heels win that. So it's anybody's guess where this is going to end up, and I guess that's what they're going for. They don't want anybody to be able to guess where it's going to end up. It's just that little pesky thing about any of this shit making sense that provides the fly in their ointment. That's any closing thoughts on blood and guts?
I wasn't as offended or bothered by the finish, but I didn't like the finish for the reasons I said before, and of course the ridiculous fake crash landing. Lots of blades. I don't know if I've ever noticed as many live when watching a match before I rewound it and watched again.
Well, see, and that's another thing. When you've got magicians that have only done the make a quarter disappear trick twice in their life, they're not as good as making that quarter disappear as the ones that have been doing it for 30 years.
Beyond that, overall, I thought AEW did a good job with War Games. If you could overlook the finish.
Yeah. That's what I said. The first 9 guys, I was with them. It wasn't until Jericho got in and the whole tenor and tone of the match and pace of the match and everything changed and they started doing the entertainment gaga portion instead of the slobber knocker that they were having. I would have, all they had to do was once Jericho got in, do another 4 or 5 fucking minutes. Leave part of the ring intact and fucking do a goddamn finish. But instead, they go another 15 or whatever and do that stupid shit off the roof and expose their crash pad. I haven't even given any thought whatsoever to how the heels might have won, but one seems to think that because Tully had already interfered and gotten the key from the referee, and Tully was a wild card, crazy thought, could not the manager have done something that fucked one of the baby faces so that the heels could go over in the middle of the ring? Just me. And the guy wouldn't be able to surrender, but if he was passed out, then that would be the same thing. The referee could fucking call it. And then somebody's going to say, oh, no, wait. If it's an I quit match, the unconscious guy can't lose because he's knocked out and he can't say I quit. Fuck you. Live in the real world. Don't tell me made up wrestling rules from the past 5 years that have never been in effect before. But I don't know. I don't know what the fuck. They almost had it. The rest of the show mostly was dreck, but they really did a good job with that one until they changed the tone of the whole thing at the end. and then had to insist on telling everybody how phony they are at the last thing that you see on the way out. They got a pay-per-view in what, 3 weeks?
I think so, the end of the month, yeah.
Maybe we will get to see Pockets versus Moxley.
No, Omega.
Or Omega, I mean, rather, not Pockets and Omega.
I hope so. I can only imagine the constipated faces he's going to make when, incredulously, this man puts his hands in his pockets. We've never seen them interact in the ring before.
Oh, I just can't wait because of the one-liners they're going to give me without me even trying. But obviously, they're going to go for Olivier and Pac, but they're trying to get some kind of hoo-ha on TV, and they think that Pockets draws TV ratings. So that'll be next week, and they'll fuck him off some kind of way. But I don't... is anybody clamoring, besides the fact that it might be a good match to some people, is anybody clamoring to see Pac against Kenny Olivier because of the fact that Pac is almost never there and he almost never wins a single match, and you know they ain't switching the belt to Pac? It's just a pay-per-view throwaway match, and why would you throw away matches on pay-per-view?
You know, I don't think there's a single match AEW fans are really clamoring for Kenny Omega to have right now. He's not really... No, because he's already had, even if you're a big AEW fan, he's had the feud with Moxley. You've seen that match several times. Cody's a non-entity. Who else? Everything else is about a faction or a tag team, it seems. Realistically, take Omega out of the equation because your hatred for him. Who else is there that's been put in that title picture that you'd really want to see Omega in there with? Miro, Brian Cage? I'm just trying to think of who's been in the singles. Darby Allin? Who?
So for the first time in history, they actually have booked themselves into a position that no other wrestling promotion ever in the world has been in, where they have a world champion and have absolutely nobody for him to wrestle that people give a shit about, that he has not already done. Interesting.